Today, we're exploring the true meaning of wealth, discovering the crucial difference between being rich and truly wealthy.
The Roberto Swift Show, where kingdom builders grow. Tech and wisdom hand in hand, building futures, taking stand. Personal growth, biblical truth, modern tech with timeless roots. Purpose-driven wealth to build, kingdom vision to fulfill. Digital wisdom changing lives. The Roberto Swift Show starts right.
Are you chasing status symbols or building lasting abundance? Here to guide you through this transformative journey is your host and brother, Roberto Swift.
All of our wants, needs, and desires can be classified into three categories: health, wealth, and relationships. These three pillars form the foundation of a balanced life. But today, we're going to primarily focus on wealth, though you will soon see how interconnected these areas truly are. In 2009, there was a movie about a family that moves into a rich, upscale neighborhood. This family appeared to be doing exceptionally well financially. It didn't take long for their neighbors to become envious and try to increase their standard of living to keep up with them. By the end of the movie, the truth came out. They are not wealthy or rich. In fact, they are not even a real family. Yeah, crazy, right? They were actors hired to move into the neighborhood and get people to buy stuff the company was promoting. It was a modern take on keeping up with the Joneses. This movie brilliantly illustrates the social pressure we all feel to display outward signs of prosperity. But here's something to consider. How much of what we see around us is real and how much is a carefully crafted illusion? The number of dollars you have in your bank account is private. Unless you're famous, which the vast majority of people is not, people have no idea what assets you have or what your net worth are. You could be wealthy or living paycheck to paycheck, and the random person you pass on the street wouldn't know the difference. I was talking with a friend recently who works at a bank, and she told me about a customer who would come in wearing old jeans, a faded t-shirt, and worn out work boots. Nothing about his appearance suggested wealth, yet this man had over $7 million in his accounts. Meanwhile, she'll see clients pull up in a luxury car, dressed impeccable, who were fighting to keep their accounts from being overdrawn. There's a huge difference between being wealthy and rich. It is vital to understand this distinction. Rich simply means the person has a lot of stuff, and this stuff carries status symbols. When you see someone buy a $50,000 Rolex or a $10,000 designer purse, it doesn't mean they have that in the bank. It means they spent that money on that item. Riches are deceptive in the fact that they can provide a person with a symbol of status that they don't legitimately have. Good examples of this can be found online across social media. And you know what I'm talking about, right? With people pretending to be financially well off, and the truth is they really are not. Their house is torn up on the outside, but they're posting pictures of their brand new car. When I started my first job after college, I felt the immense pressure to look successful before I actually was. I financed a car I couldn't really afford. Fortunately for me, I eventually paid it off. But the truth is, I was quote unquote rich in appearance, but poor in reality. I didn't have money to tithe and to give things that mattered to me because I lacked the cash flow. Once someone I worked with came into the office showing everyone pictures of their new house. And we seen the whole process of them trying to go through and actually get it bought and picking it out and stuff. They were so excited. However, their happiness didn't last long. They got fired at the end of that day. I witnessed another coworker drive their new car to work only to be fired a week later. I quickly learned that trying to project an image of success will fill your life with unnecessary stress. Constantly juggling payments and fearing an unexpected expense could make anyone's house of cards tumble. It seems strange when we see famous people wearing regular clothes because their status symbols are not visible. No chain, watch, or luxury goods. Listen closely. There's nothing wrong with having nice things and being rich. My point is, it is dishonest and not worth the effort to try to impress others with stuff to build our own self-esteem. While it's true we all desire to be accepted, attempting to fit in this way only actually rejects who we really are. Why? Because it is superficial and lacks the substance of what makes us great. Speaking of what makes each of us great, wealth and personal development are not measured in dollars. Just because a person has a lot of money in the bank or stocks in a portfolio doesn't automatically mean that they are wealthy. You can have $1 million in the bank while still being $4 million in debt. If a person cannot cover their expenses, they are not wealthy. You see, the textbook definition of wealth is the number of days a person or a household can go without actively working and maintain their standard of living. This means if a family standard of living is $100,000 a year and they have $1 million in the bank, they have 10 years of wealth. Interestingly, if they produce $1 million a year passively, while only spending $100,000 a year, they will be wealthy for the rest of their lives because each additional year will add 10 more years of financial security to their life. Let's break this down even further. True wealth isn't about what you earn, it's about the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and how that gap is invested to work for you. Consider two individuals. Person A earns $250,000 annually but spends $240,000, saving just $10,000 per year. Person B earns $70,000 but lives on $40,000, investing the remaining $30,000. Who builds wealth faster? Well, it's simple. Person B, without question. Their savings rate is 42% compared to person A, 4%. Over time, person B investments will grow to produce passive income that could eventually replace their active income entirely. This little example, it illustrates an important principle. Wealth isn't about your income level. It's about your financial habits and the relationship between your income and your expenses. You may be thinking, that sounds great. Good for them. But I don't have $1 million today. While that may be true, I only gave you the textbook definition of wealth. A key characteristic of wealth is abundance, which is the overflow that is produced due to growth. Where you are today does not have to determine where you will be tomorrow. Let me share some practical steps to start building wealth here. Understand your current financial position. You can't reach a destination without knowing your starting point. Calculate your net worth, which is your assets minus your liabilities, and your current savings rate. Map the gap by focusing on increasing the gap between your income and your expenses. This can be done by increasing your income while reducing your expenses, or ideally both, because there's only so far down you can reduce your expenses. But the amount that you can raise your income is unlimited. Another thing you can do is automate your wealth building. Set up automatic transfers to savings and investment accounts. What's not in your checking account won't get spent. Another thing is invest consistently. The miracle of compounding interest works its magic over time. A modest amount invested regularly will substantially grow over decades. And another thing, once you have focused on your one income, develop more than one income stream. but only after you have developed at least one. The true wealthy rarely rely on a single source of income. Begin developing side hustles, passive income sources, and other investments that generate cash flow. And I'm not talking from the top of the mountain here. I remember when I got my first credit card. It was at the checkout desk at JCPenney. I had the money in my hand, and instead of paying it for the stuff with cash, I loaded it onto a new credit card that they just approved me for, and a $300 limit quickly turned into $1,700 of debt. It took me years to pay it off completely, but it didn't happen overnight. It's the point. I had to be consistent and intentional about doing actions that created momentum. Earlier, I mentioned that wealth and personal development are not measured in dollars. Personal development is also measured in time. If no transformation happened over time, nothing changed and no growth occurred. It doesn't matter where you are and how bad things may seem. What is more important is identifying and knowing who you are and who you belong to. Why? Because when you are aware of this, it gives you the perspective of what you're capable of. When you know what you are capable of, it gives you the confidence to get in position and alignment to make lasting changes. Jim Rohn, a renowned business philosopher, famously said, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." Why? Because when you grow as a person, your capacity to create value increases. And with it, your ability to generate wealth. I submit to you to consider these dimensions of personal development that directly impacts wealth building. 1. Skill development. What valuable skills can you learn that the market rewards generously? 2. Mindset work. How can you overcome limiting beliefs about money and success? Relationship building. Who is in your network can mentor you, partner with you, or provide opportunities? 4 is health. How can you better optimize your physical and mental health so that you can increase your energy and your productivity? And 5, we can't forget about spiritual growth. How can you deepen your spiritual understanding that guides your values and your purpose? Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, was deeply into personal development. Before his encounter with Christ on the road to Damascus, he went by Saul. He was directly involved in the persecution of early Christians and played a role in their deaths, either by approving execution, as with Stephen, or by handing Christians over to the authorities, knowing they could potentially be executed. The book of Acts talks about how he was traveling to Damascus with official letters from the high priest authorizing him to arrest Christians and bring them to Jerusalem. A bright light appears out of nowhere. He falls to the ground, blinded by the light. He feels the presence of someone important standing there. Unable to see, he listens intently, and out of the light, he hears a voice that says, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Saul asks, "Who are you, Lord?" Out of the light, the voice replied, "I am Jesus whom you are persecuting." This encounter with Jesus changed his life forever, but in that moment, Saul had an identity crisis. His conversion was not instantaneous. He had to be led by the hand into the city of Damascus because he was still couldn't see after the encounter. Saul remained blind for 3 days. And during that time, he was praying and fasting. He went through a process of identifying who he was, who he wanted to be, and whom he belonged to. Eventually, Ananias came to lay hands on him, restore his sight, and baptize him. You see, Unlike Abraham, Jacob, Peter, God never directly changed Paul's name. Instead, he naturally shifted from using his Jewish name, Saul, to his Roman name, Paul. As he engaged in his calling to the Gentiles, he used Paul more. You see, growth requires time to occur. In Paul's letters to the Christians in Rome, he said to them, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." See, once Paul got a revelation of who Jesus was, he began to have a revelation of who he was. And he was called to the Gentiles, among other things. This transformation process that Paul underwent offers profound insights for our journey of personal growth and wealth building. One, the importance of identity. Like Paul, we must understand who we truly are, separate from our social labels and expectations. The need for stillness. Paul's 3 days of blindness forced him into a period of reflection and prayer. Similarly, we need quiet moments to evaluate our path. The power of mentorship. Ananias played a critical role in Paul's transformation. Who are the mentors and guides in your life? The gradual nature of change. Paul's name change wasn't immediate. He used to go by both, but it evolved as he embraced his new identity and calling. True transformation takes time. A lot of the time, we want to just jump straight to the finish line without the work to get there. In all areas of life, we have to have a clear picture of our identity. That informs what we do, and what we do determines what we have. Proverbs warns us, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little of the folding of hands, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. Poverty is caused by many things, and one of those things is laziness. Self-improvement is a lifelong process, but over time, you can see the difference in your life. You can see what areas you are growing in and what areas you are dying to. Even Jesus was big on being intentional with our actions and our words. He was intentional when he spoke, and he used exaggerated language often to make certain points. For example, he once said, if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go to hell. The point isn't literally self-mutilation, but rather the seriousness with which we should approach the things that lead us astray, including the pursuit of false riches over true wealth. I believe it is very good for us to examine ourselves on a regular basis and determine if our lives and heart are in alignment with Jesus. If we walk in the Spirit, we won't feed the parts of us that want to destroy us. This alignment is critical when it comes to wealth as well. Money is good because God declared it. The universal symbol for wealth in the Bible and in life is gold. And in the Garden of Eden, there was gold, and God said it was good. But our relationship with our money reveals much about our hearts. Anything that is good can be used for evil. But when our pursuit of wealth is in line with our deeper values and purpose, it becomes a force for good in our lives and in the lives of others. You want to use money to love others. Ask yourself these powerful questions. Am I pursuing wealth to impress others or to create freedom and opportunity? Does my financial management reflect my stated values? Am I being a good steward of what I've been given? How can my wealth building journey benefit others and not just myself? Because there's only so much money you can have that will take care of yourself. But there will be an abundance and an overflow that you have that needs to be used for something else. You only have so many hours in a day. There's a movie called Passengers. And in that movie, the guy is all awoke on the ship all alone. And essentially, he can do whatever he wants. But you know what happened? After a while, he got bored. Because he didn't have anyone else to share it with. No friends, no family, no one to talk to. He was alone. And being rich and alone is not a pleasant thing to be. I want to leave you with some practical steps you can take this week. Audit your spending. Where's your money really going? Track every expense for the next 7 days. Do an identity reflection. Spend 15 minutes in a quiet, reflective space asking yourself who you are truly and what values guide your life. Calculate the gap between your income and your expenses. How can you widen it by 5% this month? Here's an abundance practice. Each day, write down 3 things that you're grateful for that God has given you. Even if it's just you can wake up and that you have another day on this planet. This shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Because even just being alive gives you an opportunity to do something that somebody somewhere doesn't have. Or you can schedule an hour with someone you respect financially and learn from their journey. Remember, true wealth isn't about what you have. It's about who you are becoming. The journey to wealth is a marathon, not a sprint. And it begins with transforming ourselves from the inside out. Next week, we'll explore why wealth is a spiritual concept. Until then, focus on identifying who you want to be and how you want to get there. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel, like the video if it was helpful, and I'm excited to grow together. I'm Roberto Swift, and I'm out.